Their mics are off.
Okay.
we are going to move on. So even if you're not done, please put your phone down in 3. You can
No,
finish
don't.
them.
I can't put it there.
2, 1. Thanks, Alexa. Thanks, Ben.
Crazy forehead.
David, thanks for putting your phone down.
Oh yeah.
So
Close yours. Close it on my screen.
this class is freshman pace. So if you guys, some of you took 10 minutes to find the slides on Canvas, that is too long. That is like you are not functioning at freshman level, and you need to do it faster. So I can't slow down for those people. We must keep going. I'm going to explain the next activity. If you then are not done with your notes, you want to go back and finish them, you could do that before you go to the next step. But for everybody else who's done, because they were on, moving on. So separate from these, I'm going to make you write one more thing. On the next page, I want you to specifically call out biomolecules. Put the rest of our data down. This is the last thing you have to write today. And then it's going to be sort of puzzle activity in groups after I explain it. So biomolecules. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Next page.
Can we do it on the same?
I would do it separate. I would go to the next page. It'll make it easier. Organized. So biomolecules are special because they're the ones that you make inside your body that your cells need to survive. And so sometimes we eat biomolecules from our food. Sometimes we make them inside our own bodies. There's certain ones we can make. Quiet, please. For example, carbohydrates. We get those as we eat plants, and plants contain carbohydrates inside of them. But something like a nucleic acid, we don't eat those. We eat the ingredients to make the molecules, then we produce them inside our cells in the nucleus. And so we'll kind of go through in our activity, what do these molecules look like? And so right now I'm going to play a 5-minute video where we go through. As you listen to each of these, I want you to try to write down what's an example of something that has carbohydrates, and what is the purpose of carbohydrates for yourself. I'll kind of stop the video if we need to, if it's going too fast. But the reason I put these 2 as stars is because that's what you're trying to find for each category. This one we've talked about the most, right? So we've talked about proteins. We know that proteins are molecules that you, for example, your P53 protein checks errors in DNA replication. We've talked about that. We talked about how genes code for proteins. So genes are the directions that tell you what proteins to make, so it can have molecules doing special jobs. So this one we covered quite a bit. These 3 this one we've mentioned. These 2 So as you're listening, try to find an example. Does that make sense?
Carbohydrate.
What? Class, they go over carbs a little bit, so let's figure out exactly what they are. Right, that's a good start. If you're still copying that down, we'll leave it on that screen. I'm gonna start doing it on this.
Wait, I still haven't gotten any.
I'll give you some 30 minutes.
Are you?
Wait, but we got up.
Yeah, I still have to work that for a minute. Biomolecules.
Pause it.
This is as far as I can go.
Normal. Huh? Okay, I already know what it is. I saw it. Nothing.
I want you to think for a moment about your favorite food. What is it? We all have different food preferences, but food is a source of large molecules that are needed for life, called biomolecules, also known as macromolecules, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. In different types of food, you might find higher amounts of these biomolecules. For example, peanut butter can be high in both proteins and lipids. We'll mention examples of foods that contain different biomolecules in this video. This is not a video on nutrition. This is a video on the classes of biomolecules and their importance to the structure and function of cells, and therefore also to the entire organism, because organisms consist of these cells. Before we get into details about the 4 biomolecules, let's talk about one very important word, the word monomer. A monomer is a building block. If I have a large substance, the parts that make up that substance are called monomers. Biomolecule class, we will mention its monomer if it applies.
So you guys don't have to write that word. Biomolecules are quite large, and they're usually made of the same routine unit over and over. For example, what is the monomer or pieces that build protein? Everyone remember?
Gloria?
So you don't have to make a monomer, and you hook a bunch of those together, and it makes a biomolecule protein. Nothing to write yet. You don't write anything that's gone into any of them. You can if you want, but you don't have to write.
We'll start with the biomolecule class of carbohydrates. Generally, food sources such as bread, pasta, fruits, and vegetables tend to be high in carbohydrates.
So if you want to write down in your notes an example of carbohydrate, does anybody from health class remember why you guys talk about carbohydrates? Anything about that? No. They are an energy. Are they a fast energy source or a slow energy?
No,
Fast.
slow.
Fast. Fast energy. That's what we're going with. So if you want to burn energy really quickly, carbs. So if you're working out and you want a quick hit of energy to finish your workout, you eat carbs. Like gels that run into little gels, those are carbs. Good carbs.
The monomer of a carbohydrate, remember, that means the building block, is the monosaccharide. One example of a monosaccharide is the sugar glucose. Glucose is a very big deal considering it's used in cellular respiration to make ATP, an energy currency. If 2 monosaccharides, such as glucose, are combined, you get a disaccharide. For example, put these 2 glucose sugars together and you get the disaccharide maltose. By the way, a lot of sugars have that OSE ending. Glucose, maltose, lactose, sucrose, fructose, you could go on. The ending OSE can be a carbohydrate clue. If you join a lot of monosaccharides together, they can combine to make a polysaccharide, a big carbohydrate. So how are carbohydrates important to an organism and the structure of its cells? Well, plants have cell walls of carbohydrates, specifically a known as cellulose. Fungi have cell walls of carbohydrates too, specifically one known as chitin. Fun fact that carbohydrate chitin is also up the exoskeleton of insects. We mentioned glucose is
We have cell wall in carbohydrates.
Yeah.
No, we don't have cell wall in cell membranes and then not Meals are not cell. Dead cells. So those are good point then. Part of our unit is going to be telling you guys what ATP is and why it's important. You don't have to worry about that right now, but just mentioning that your cells want ATP because it's the type of energy that they can use, and we'll explain that more later.
used to make ATP. That makes carbohydrates a fast source of energy for cells. So that's a big function for carbs, a major energy source that cells can access. That
So I would write down for the big of carbs, it's fast energy that cells can access. So cells can quickly break down these molecules and get energy from them as fast as they need it, which is kind of nice. It's the fastest way to do it. Other energies are more long lasting, but they're harder to break down.
Natural.
energy can be stored in a polysaccharide form. Remember, polysaccharide is a big carbohydrate, such as starch for plants or glycogen for animals. Next up, lipids. Lipids include fats and oils. Example sources could include butter or olive oil. This is a seriously diverse group, meaning types of lipids. There are triglycerides, there are phospholipids, there are steroids. These are just some examples. Most, but not all, have building blocks of glycerol and fatty acids. One thing though that lipids generally share, generally they're hydrophobic, or at least contain a significant hydrophobic component. That means lipids, or at least a major component of them, don't like water. Lipids generally dissolve in water. And that's interesting, is generally the other biomolecules. So how are lipids important to an organism and the structure and function of its cells? Remember we said all cells plant cells, animal cells, all cells have membranes. But they have lipids for that phospholipid bilayer, because that's right, lipids make up cell structure. Lipids have a main
So that's probably the most important thing I'm gonna mention for lipids. They make up your cell membrane. So if you didn't have cell membranes, all of your nutrients and stuff in your cells would just spill out on the floor and you'd be dead. So lipids keep you alive by forming the flexible outer layers of your cells. That's very important.
What, you saw the replay?
Yeah.
You saw the replay of it? You saw the
Your
replay
function
of it?
being a source of long-term energy storage. Remember how we said carbohydrates were a fast source of energy, but when those carbs are used up, lipids have a function as long-term energy storage that an organism can use. Lipids are also very important for different types of insulation. The insulation may involve helping a cell carry an electrical impulse. For example, this myelin sheath made of lipids that can be found in many neurons. Or insulation may involve temperature regulation, so thermal insulation. For example, the blubber on this adult carp seal is made of lipids. It conserve heat. Another cool function about lipids, many lipids act as hormones, which are chemical messengers for many different processes. Next up, proteins. Protein food sources include beans, meat, nuts, and eggs. The monomer of a protein is an amino acid. Usually, proteins consist of many amino acids bonded together. There are different types of amino acids. So how are proteins important to an organism in the structure and function of its cells? Structure-wise, tissue like muscle tissue consists heavily of proteins. Proteins can make up all kinds of other structures, hair or collagen, for example. Proteins can also be
So
found in
she's gonna go off right now on a bunch of different jobs that proteins do. If you just want an easy note to write down, you can just write, they do special jobs for the cell. Three structures, she just showed special job. Being a protein channel in a membrane, special that helps the cell. The next 3 or 4 things she's gonna mention are all different jobs that proteins do, so I just put them in my brain as molecules that do special things for the cell, whatever that cell needs, right? So a muscle tissue's proteins are gonna be doing different jobs than like a brain cell's proteins, because they have different functions.
embedded in cell membranes as protein channels. And channels are structure with functions of letting certain substances pass through. Proteins can also be receptors, which are critical in cell signaling, so cells can coordinate actions together. Most enzymes are made of proteins. Remember, enzymes can build up or break down substances in all kinds of metabolic processes. Antibodies, which are made by immune cells in your body, are proteins, and they're involved in protecting your body. In some critical hormones, such as insulin, are proteins. And when we start talking about genes, genes are made of DNA, but many genes do code for proteins. And that brings us to our last one that includes DNA, nucleic acids. Nucleic acids include DNA and RNA, which we'll get to in
There's your examples, so definitely write down that.